It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's date is the 19th. And what is today, John?
Today is Juneteenth, Brad. Which is totally a real holiday.
I don't get it.
And if it wasn't for George Floyd and his enthusiasm for fentanyl, we probably wouldn't have Juneteenth as a national holiday. I mean, we certainly wouldn't.
I don't get it. Okay, first off, before we go into Brad's top three, let me clarify something that I said. I have nothing against Mike Elam. Mike Elam does a great job of filling in. But when I talk to Mike Elam, he tells me they call him all the time, and they call him so much about filling in a 97-1, he has to turn him down a bunch of times. And the sad part of that is, you know what the sad part of that is?
Oh, what's sad about that, Brad?
They have, and this is true, this is not true of just 97.1, this is true of almost every radio station. They have no bench. Now, you being a sports guy and coaching your kids' Little League team and the whole bit, you know what I'm saying, right?
I do, yeah. You're saying that they don't have a bench. Now, are you saying, Brad, it would seem they do have a bench because they always have someone to fill in. So it seems like whether it's Brad Young or Mike Elam, they do have a bench.
They don't have a bench on staff. And it was interesting because just the other day I was reading another Radio Geeks thing that talked about that the radio business used to be that the newbies were put on the night shows or the weekends or overnights and things like that. And they learned the craft, shall we say, by being there on the weekends and at nights and stuff like that. Well, now the radio stations are all automated at nights and weekends. The only live people are on during the day, and a lot of times even during the day they're automated, most of the radio stations. So therefore, they have nobody who's like learning the craft or maybe been in the business for a couple of years and starting to get good and put them into a prime time situation where they can shine. And that's why they end up calling. And once again, nothing against Mike Elam. He doesn't work there. He's a part-timer. What's his name? Brad, my counterpart. I've talked back and forth with him. Brad Young. He told me on the phone one time, I shouldn't say this, that sometimes they call him and go like, oh, I can't do it. I got a case I got to get ready for. They don't have a bench. That's what I'm just saying. And that's indicative of how I feel the business is sad. Okay? Are we good on that, John?
Yeah, I didn't have any qualms with it.
Well, actually it was me. I didn't want to make it sound like I was being critical of Mike Elam. You
weren't. You're just critical of the fact that guys like Mark Reardon deserve and take their vacation.
John, there are certain things that were ingrained in me in my very beginnings of the radio business. And the one, you're going to laugh because this is a fast food reference. The one was, my one boss said, whenever you go to McDonald's, you can get a Big Mac. No matter where you're at, time of the day, well, not necessarily for breakfast, but back in the day, you could get a Big Mac, but that was a whole other story for breakfast.
And the idea is every day.
But the idea being you have to be consistent. And if you have a talk show host who people like because of his personality and he's not there, you got a problem. That's the point I'm making, okay?
I got it, Brad.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
Yes, time for Brad's Top 3. Ladies, sing it one more time.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
Thank you so much. Okay, number 3. Are we ready for number 3, John?
Yeah, we sure are.
It's number 3.
I'll be honest with you. This is a retread from yesterday. I think it was number 2 yesterday, but it's still an interesting story. The Arnold Schwarzenegger appearance on The View. Okay, we talked about this, and the interesting thing was I've listened to it, but I didn't watch it. And supposedly, there's an interesting moment where Arnold Schwarzenegger is talking, and he was giving his speech about, and if you've listened, did you hear this at all, John?
No, not at all.
You got to hear it. He is so good. He talks about the fact that there's no country in the world that had given him, the chances and the opportunities he got here in the United States. No country where he could have come over here at 21 and become a bodybuilder and then become a movie star and then become the governor. And he goes into this very impassioned thing. And he starts ticking off the ladies on The View because they're not down with this. And at one point, this is according to, still have not seen the video, but they say it's funny. One of the women gently wraps her hands around one of his biceps. And, okay.
Oh, nice. Now, is that to get him to stop or to feel him up?
Now, John, okay. Let's work this out. Okay. One of the things that I almost had a double major for my minor. I had speech communications, and I had some really interesting professors. I had a young guy by the name of Joe Muncho, who every once in a while, still Dr. Muncho still shows up on my Facebook page and says something to me. He taught paralanguage, and he also taught, we called it back in the day kinesiology, which was essentially body language. But you know what paralanguage is?
Yeah, it's unspoken language.
Yes, it's like if I said to you, John, I love you, you go like, wow, that sounds like a machine.
Yeah. Or you always, Brad, you've talked about this many times. You use the example of if a man came home and told his wife, I love you.
Right. But if he said,
you look nice.
Right. Yeah, you look nice. What's for dinner? Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So people, the old stat that 90% of communication is nonverbal.
Right. So he was giving this very impassioned plea and talking about when you're a guest in someone's home, you make it, you make sure you don't mess it up, and you make your bed when you leave and things like that. So at one point, I don't know who it is, one of the women from The View grabbed his bicep, not grabbed it, but and it's to the point where the point I was trying to make was, if you do that, what does a woman do when she's doing that? She say, and what's the words that come out of her mouth? Think about that for a minute.
When can we leave and go home?
Or, honey, I think you've said enough, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I guess you and I would probably have to see it to see what our interpretation of it would be, right?
But the point being was that I heard this on another show, okay? And the point being is, turn that around, that if Arnold would have reached out and grabbed one of the, I'm not grabbed, but in other words, as a woman's talking to Arnold, and he would have reached out and put his hands around her arm. Oh my God, that's terrible. Did you see what he did? He touched her arm. He grabbed her arm. Get what I'm saying?
I get exactly. Oh yeah, it would be. Can you believe the misogyny and the internalized patriarchy of Schwarzenegger?
Right, he was grabbing his arm. That shows that he's in charge.
Now, in her, I'm sorry to interrupt, Brad, but in her defense, maybe whoever was it, Joey Behar?
No, it was one of the younger. I'll have to see if
Meredith
I can find
Vieira or something. Anyway. It could be like the other day there was a fight in women's basketball, and I only know it because Sophie Cunningham's hot. But like one of the security guards acted like he was trying to push Sophie away and copped a little feel on her booty. So maybe it was like the chick from The View who probably hasn't had her hand on a strong bicep in a long time. I'm stereotyping. But maybe she just wanted to feel Arnold's arm, Well,
it was, what's interesting about this is, if you know immigrants, and I have a few of them in my life that I know, they are, and I'm talking legal immigrants, people that, put their name in line, went through the courses, the whole bit. And every year, remember, that was part of the VP fair when we had it. I don't know if they still do it, but that was part of the VP fair back in the day, that they have the naturalization process where they become official American citizens.
Yeah, and they would do, and then years later, they would do a thing like on July 4th at City Hall every year.
Yes, and they were so happy to be an American citizen, and that's what Arnold was saying. And the girls on the women on The View did not like it. And I thought to myself, okay, because you know what their view is? He's essentially saying they should be legal, they should come through the system like he did, and they're saying no, just open up the borders, let anybody in. We won't have the bad people will stay away. We won't get any criminals. We won't get any TDA. Those people will never come to the United States. They're having too much fun in Venezuela and Colombia and the countries from, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, done with that one.
It's time for Brad's number 2.
Got to say it twice.
It's time for Brad's number 2.
Here it is Thursday. I haven't brought this up, and this was something that I heard, I believe, Monday. Do you know who Larry Charles is?
No, I don't.
Larry Charles is a guy who is a comedian, a writer, and he has a very lengthy, list of successful things he's written for. He wrote for the Seinfeld show, all that kind of stuff. Okay, and he was on with Terry Gross. This was like during the day. Terry Gross, and by the way, do you know Terry Gross, who has a somewhat, lower voice? She's like 4'9". Do you know this? She's a little tiny woman.
No, I didn't know that. She's a little person.
Very, very small. And very small stature, but she doesn't have a squeaky voice. She's got a, sort of a deeper voice.
So you were doing self-harm and listening to NPR. Go ahead, Brad.
So John, I'm a button puncher. So they got Larry Charles on. And one of the things that Larry Charles was talking about, he was so proud of working on the two Sacha Baron Cohen, Sacha Baron Cohen, is that his name?
I think so.
Okay. And if you know, there's the two movies. One was Borat, and what was the other one? The one where he plays like a journalist from another country and is interviewing all these people. And the other one where he's like a homosexual. He comes out as a gay guy and stuff like that. Okay. Have you ever seen these movies before?
I haven't, no.
Okay. Do you know about them?
I know about the Borat. I saw the original Borat movie, yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. So you've seen Borat, okay?
Yeah, I saw the first movie. Yeah, I think that was his first movie.
Right, that was the first one. Okay, Larry Charles was in charge of getting these people onto the movie. And if you know the story, they did not tell people who it was. And at the time, Sacha Baron Cohen was not very well known. Nobody really knew who he was. And they essentially lied to these people. And what was interesting was normally, Terry Gross doesn't ever really, she's got like sort of one of those, like if somebody ran into the studio with a bomb and she would say, oh my God, there's a bomb in the studio. She's got one of those kind of voices when she doesn't ever get excited, right?
Yeah, or animated or confrontational.
Right. She got excited when he told the story about how he lied to these people. And I don't know what kind of a waiver they signed. They must have signed some kind of a crazy waiver, that they didn't read, essentially because nobody knew, any of the people in these movies had no idea they were going to be in a movie. And at one point in time, I think in the second movie, they had several politicians who they invited to, and the deal was, this is when he played a gay guy. And they invited these politicians up to a hotel room and they said, we're going to film in a hotel room. And it was like a suite where they had like a couple rooms and stuff like that. And they would bring them in, and they had cameras in there and sound equipment. And then Sasha would say, okay, let's go, and use a weird voice, let's go into the bedroom. And they would have like the politicians sit on the bed. And Borat, or our guest, I can't what he was in the second one, let's just call him Sasha. Sasha would strip down to his underwear, okay? And they were specifically looking for the reactions of these politicians, and I think they were all Republican, who were all sort of straight-laced as to what it would be like to be in a hotel room with a gay guy who's stripping down to his undies, okay? And even I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe I'm hearing this. And Terry Gross even says, isn't that sexual harassment? She got sort of animated. I'm thinking to myself, John, think about that for a minute. If you were invited to, let's say someone's, oh my God, I love that John Combest show. Come and we're going to interview you at the pick a nice hotel in West County.
At the Adams Mark.
The Adams Mark with a suite. Okay, we've got all the stuff. We got one suite, one part of the suite set up with all the camera equipment, and then the guy says to you, hey, we've got it. Let's do more interview. Let's go into the bedroom suite, and the guy starts stripping down to his skivvies. Okay, wouldn't you say like, I'm out of here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Now, the unbelievable part of that is I'm obviously not going to go east of 270. So the Adams Mark is out of the question. But yeah, Brad, I mean, and I think at a certain point, what I always got, I know that the Borat movies use creative editing and things like that. But I don't know how, if you're Newt Gingrich or you're any other medium to high level public figure, how you don't have a team that vets this really closely.
You know what?
And go ahead.
I totally agree with you. But the interesting part of it was he addressed that. That they, he came out, well, we told him this. We essentially, and she even said, well, you were lying to them. And he's, well, about lying. But the interesting point of it was, she said, why did you do this to these people? And he came out and said, because I hate them and we were truly trying to destroy them. I'm thinking to myself, what a nice guy this is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But also, and I mean, having not heard this or known his motivations other than as you tell them to me, Brad, think of how many people with a camera that call themselves TikTokers or YouTubers feel the same way about, put politics aside, feel the same way about corporate leaders or anyone famous. They hate people that are successful. So they think, hey, we're going to bring all these people down.
But and I agree with you, John. And how sad is that? How sad is that?
It's pretty sad. But you know what, Brad? I mean, just because you don't have, I remind you of this all the time, Brad. Just because you do things for the greater good, it doesn't mean that everybody else has the same ethos, so to speak. It doesn't mean that other people have the same values as you. There are a lot of people that are just really negative and mean.
Well,
and they're all in your Facebook comments, Brad.
When he came out and when he came out and said they did it because they hated these people, I thought to myself, how sad is that? Okay, we're time for number one. We're going too long here. I'm sorry, John. Here we go.
And now, big finish, Brad's number.
Okay, John. Have you ever heard of this thing called Enneagram? Enneagram?
No, what's that?
It's one of these personality kind of things. It's called, matter of fact, you can find it on the web. It's called the Enneagram Institute, Enneagram, and they classify people. This was sent to me by one of our listeners yesterday, and it's pretty interesting. You are a 1, and I am a 7. And what's interesting is they describe the various personality types, and then they give the interaction between the various personality types, okay?
And of course, let me interrupt, Brad. I'm looking at it now. Of course, you identify as fun-loving and spontaneous, and you put me in the category of judgmental and uncompromising.
No.
Thank you, Brad.
No. Let me just read you this. Okay, I'm going to read you this. This is what relationship. This is called Enneagram Type 1, the reformer, with Enneagram Type 7, the enthusiast. You're the reformer. I'm the enthusiast. Okay. Enneagram 1s and 7s have a particular complementary and reciprocal relationship. They are opposites who can either bring something needed to the other person, thereby helping both to achieve new growth, or as we will see, they can drive each other further apart by playing on each other's weaknesses, whether consciously or not. 1s bring conscientiousness, orderliness, good work habits, methodical attention to detail, and a pleasure in maintaining excellence and high standards. John, that's you, right?
Well, thank you for that compliment. Yeah, Brad.
I mean, here, I'm going to read it one more time. 1s bring conscientiousness, orderliness, good work habits, methodical attention to detail, and a pleasure in maintaining excellence and high standards. You always were saying I made a mistake on various things, and I do. I make tons of mistakes. But like I can't find it real quick. I should play the Scott Fawn thing.
And what does it say about your type, number 7, Brad?
Okay, well, let me keep going. 7s bring spontaneity, high energy, curiosity, an orientation toward fun and adventure, the desire to try new things, and an ability to not get too hung up with getting everything done perfectly. Is that me or what? Both types
I think so, Brad.
Both types can be initiators and planners, future-oriented and idealistic, although 7s tend to prefer having multiple options and to keep all plans loose enough so they can be changed as needed.
Oh my God, I just threw up. I just broke out in hives.
They bring freedom and spontaneity. 1s are more methodical and help 7s stay on track. How many times does John say when I'm talking about something, no, Brad, let's get back on track? I read this,
true, Brad. This is a good point.
When I read this, I thought to myself, this is so funny because it's so accurate. I'm going to read it again. 1, which you are more methodical and help 7s, which is me, stay on track. They resist getting distracted by too many options and excel at following through with their plans. John has done the John Combest update for 23 years and never missed a single day. He is truly a 1. Okay, 7s offer 1s a sense of excitement and life as a source of pleasure and enjoyment. See, so I bring pleasure and enjoyment to your life, John.
That is true, Brad.
1s offer 7s a sense of purpose and idealism, as well as direction and the feeling that the life is noble and meaningful. 7s keep 1s' spirits up, refreshing their idealism while preventing the relationship from becoming too heavy. 1s help steady 7s, keeping them working systematically and consistently toward goals. 7s appreciate the 1's consistency and reliability and are glad to have someone who can attend to details. This is exactly you and I.
I agree, Brad. And let me say, in my moments of self-reflection, particularly in the last 48 hours, I go through cycles where I get very crabby and very critical of you. And then I remind myself, Brad, that you are who you are. And just because there's things that I do that drive you nuts and vice versa, I can't control you, nor should I. And the things that you are very good at are things that I lack in my life. So I look at you and I think, why doesn't Brad do things exactly as I do? But that would be very boring.
Okay, let me read you the last part of this. And it's interesting because wait till you hear this. These two types can be highly supportive of each other as long as their ultimate values are congruent and as long as they are both working for the same fundamental things in life. This tends to be stimulating relationship for both. They stretch each other and are fascinated, challenged by their differences. I'm telling you, when I read this, I thought to myself, this is you and I to a T.
We should have read this together holding hands a week ago, Brad. And I realize that's a gay sentence, but that's okay.
Well, we could have gone to a Little League game and smoked a joint or two while we were reading and holding hands.
We could have hotboxed it.
Right. So
let's set up an Enneagram station at a Little League park, and we can smoke weed and we can talk about our differences.
John,
this is the best Brad's top 3, I deem it, of all 6, Brad.
Okay, so the interesting part of this is, John, sometimes you say things, and the way you say them are so funny. When you were doing I actually had the mic muted. Otherwise, I would have laughed out loud. I sometimes when you do your thing to not annoy you, I just turn my mic off. And you gave the reference to people smoking dope in the carpool line or the pickup line at Francis House School District schools, which to me is so. I mean, think about that for a minute. Okay, you're smoking dope, which to me is the same thing as got a bottle of Jack and you're tipping back a bottle of Jack waiting for your kids to come out of school. Role models, not, you know what I'm saying?
It's suburban America 2025, right?
It's just like I don't know if you've heard this or not. There's a we use some. Well, here, I'll tell you. We'll start up with 3. There's a. Here, I'm going to do this. Just remind me, Franklin County, Tennessee. Okay, remind me if that we'll start with that in the C block, which is actually kind of funny. Okay, we have to take a break.